The unforgiving sun beat down on Olivia Montgomery's pale skin as she crawled across the scorched Arizona desert, her once fine blue dress torn and covered in dust, her parched lips cracked and bleeding. Betrayal had led her here, abandoned and left to die by the man she had trusted with not only her heart but her very life. The year was 1876, and the American West remained as wild as it was beautiful and deadly. Olivia had traveled from Boston with dreams of adventure and a new life, only to discover the harsh reality that awaited unprepared Easterners in this untamed land. Her throat burned with each shallow breath. 3 days without water, 2 nights spent shivering beneath the stars. One terrible mistake in trusting the wrong man. Edward Blackwell had seemed so charming in Boston, promising her a life of comfort in the Arizona territory. What a fool she had been to believe him. When she discovered his plan to marry her for her inheritance, he had abandoned her here, taking everything: her luggage, her money, even the locket containing the last picture of her deceased parents. Olivia collapsed onto the hot sand, unable to move another inch. The vultures had been circling for hours, waiting patiently for their inevitable meal. Her vision blurred as she stared up at the cloudless blue sky. "I'm sorry, Mother," she whispered, her voice barely audible even to herself. "I should have listened." The sound of hoofbeats registered dimly in her consciousness. A hallucination, surely one last cruel trick of her dying mind. But the hoofbeats grew louder, and suddenly a shadow fell across her face, blissfully blocking the relentless sun. "Sweet Jesus," a deep voice exclaimed. Miss, can you hear me?" Olivia tried to respond, but her tongue felt swollen and useless in her mouth. Strong arms gently lifted her, and she found herself cradled against a broad chest that smelled of leather, horses, and sweat. Through her delirium, she registered the rough texture of a cotton shirt against her cheek and the steady rhythm of a heartbeat beneath. "Hang on, miss. I've got you now." She felt herself being lifted onto a horse, the man mounting behind her and holding her securely against him with one arm while he controlled the reins with the other. "Water," she managed to croak. The horse stopped. She heard the sound of a cork being pulled from a canteen, and then gentle fingers were tilting her head back. The man held a canteen to her lips. "Easy now. Just a little at first," he cautioned, allowing only a small trickle to pass between her cracked lips. The water felt like heaven, cool and sweet as it moistened her parched mouth. She tried to grab the canteen, desperate for more, but he pulled it away. "Not too fast. It'll make you sick," he said, his tone kind but firm. "We'll get you more soon, I promise." He allowed her another small sip before putting the canteen away. Olivia wanted to protest, to beg for more, but even those few precious drops had revived her enough to understand the wisdom in his restraint. "My camp's not far," he told her. "Just hold on a little longer." As they rode, Olivia drifted in and out of consciousness, aware only of the steady rhythm of the horse beneath them and the secure grip of the stranger holding her. When she next opened her eyes fully, they were approaching a small camp nestled in the shadow of a rocky outcropping. A modest campfire smoldered and a single tent stood nearby. A second horse was tethered to a scrubby tree. The man dismounted first, then carefully lifted her down. Her legs buckled immediately, but he caught her, sweeping her into his arms as if she weighed nothing at all. "Let's get you into the shade," he said, carrying her to the tent. Inside, he laid her gently on a bedroll. For the first time, Olivia got a clear look at her rescuer. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with sun-bronzed skin and a strong jaw covered in several days' worth of stubble. His eyes were a startling blue against his tanned face, and dark hair curled from beneath his wide-brimmed hat. "Name's Noah Reed," he said, uncorking the canteen again. "I'm going to give you some more water now, but you need to drink slowly." "Olivia," she managed between small sips. "Olivia Montgomery." "Well, Miss Montgomery, you're lucky I found you when I did. Another few hours in that sun. He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. They both knew what would have happened. "Thank you," she whispered. Noah nodded, his expression serious. "You rest now. We'll talk when you're stronger." Olivia wanted to ask questions about where they were, how far from civilization, what would happen next, but exhaustion claimed her before she could form the words. She drifted into sleep with the comforting knowledge that, at least for now, she was safe. When she awoke, the light had changed. The harsh afternoon sun had given way to the golden glow of evening. Noah sat by the campfire, stirring something in a pot that smelled tantalizingly of beans and salt pork. Her stomach growled loudly, reminding her that it had been days since she'd eaten properly. Hearing her stir, Noah glanced over. "Good evening, Miss Montgomery. Feeling any better?" Olivia pushed herself up to sitting, noting with surprise that she had the strength to do so. "Yes, thank you." "And please call me Olivia." He nodded, dipping a tin cup into the pot and bringing it to her. "It's not fancy, but it's hot and filling. Take it slow." The stew was simple but tasted better than any fine meal she'd had in Boston. She forced herself to eat slowly, savoring each spoonful, aware of Noah watching her carefully. "How did you find me?" she asked after satisfying the worst of her hunger. Noah settled back, balancing his own plate on his knee. "I was tracking a mountain lion that's been bothering some ranchers' cattle. Saw the vultures circling and went to investigate." He paused, his blue eyes studying her face. "Mind telling me how a lady like yourself ended up alone in one of the most dangerous stretches of desert in the territory?" Olivia looked down at her bowl, shame washing over her. "I was a fool," she admitted softly. "I trusted a man I shouldn't have. Edward Blackwell. We met in Boston, and he spoke so charmingly about opportunities in the West. After my parents died, there was nothing keeping me there, so when he proposed marriage and a new life in Arizona." She shook her head. "I accepted." Noah's expression darkened. "And he left you out there to die. When I discovered he was only after my inheritance, Her voice caught. "He took everything. Said no one would ever find me, and even if they did, it would be too late." Noah's hand tightened around his cup. "Edward Blackwell, you said." Something in his tone made Olivia look up sharply. "You know him." "Know of him," Noah corrected. "He's gaining quite a reputation in these parts. You're not the first woman he's swindled, though he's never gone this far before." Anger briefly overcame her embarrassment. "He's done this to others. Not exactly the same, but similar cons. Usually he just disappears with the money before the wedding." Noah set his empty plate aside. "He's never left someone to die before. That makes it murder or attempted murder, thanks to your tenacity." Olivia felt a chill despite the warmth of the evening. What will happen now? "I have nothing, no money, no possessions." Noah considered her for a moment. "First, we get you healthy again. Then we can ride to Tucson. I have friends there who can help, and you can report what Blackwell did to the marshal." "And then what?" Olivia asked, hating how vulnerable she sounded. "I can't go back to Boston. I sold everything to come west." "One step at a time, Miss Olivia," Noah said gently. "For tonight, you're safe, and that's what matters." As darkness fell fully over the desert, Olivia found herself studying her rescuer more carefully. Noah Reed was nothing like the polished, smooth-talking men she had known in Boston. His hands were calloused from hard work, his face weathered by sun and wind. Yet there was a kindness in his eyes that Edward, for all his cultured charm, had never possessed. "You should take the tent tonight," Noah said, interrupting her thoughts. "I'll sleep by the fire." "I couldn't possibly. You need proper rest to recover your strength," he insisted. "I've slept under the stars more nights than I can count." Olivia wanted to argue further but found herself yawning instead. Her body, still recovering from its ordeal, demanded rest. "Thank you, Mr. Reed." "Noah," he corrected with a small smile. "If I'm calling you Olivia seems only fair." "Noah," she repeated, liking the way his name felt on her lips. "Thank you." For everything. In the tent, wrapped in Noah's spare blanket that smelled faintly of leather and pine, Olivia fell into the deepest sleep she'd had in weeks, free from the nightmares of betrayal that had plagued her since discovering Edward's true nature. Outside, Noah kept watch, his gaze alternating between the vast starlit sky and the tent where the mysterious Eastern woman slept. The next morning, Olivia awoke to the aroma of coffee brewing over the campfire. She emerged from the tent to find Noah already up and about, tending to the horses. "Morning," he called when he spotted her. "Coffee's hot if you want some." Olivia made her way to the fire, her legs steadier than they had been the previous day. "I haven't had coffee in days," she said gratefully, accepting the tin cup he offered. Noah studied her as she sipped the strong brew. "You're looking better, some color back in your cheeks." "I feel almost human again," she admitted, "though I must look a fright." She was acutely aware of her torn, dirty dress and tangled hair. "You look like someone who survived what would have killed most people," Noah replied simply. "That's something to be proud of, not embarrassed about." His matter-of-fact assessment took her by surprise. In Boston, a lady's appearance was everything. Here it seemed different qualities were valued. "I've been thinking," Noah continued, pouring himself more coffee. "Tucson's about 4 days' ride from here. You'll need some time to build up your strength before we make that journey." "I don't want to delay you," Olivia said quickly. "You mentioned tracking a mountain lion," Noah shrugged. "That cat's been evading me for weeks." "A few more days won't make much difference." He glanced at the sky. "There's a small stream about half a mile from here. If you're feeling up to it, you might appreciate a chance to wash up." The thought of water-cool, clean water to bathe in was almost too wonderful to contemplate. "I would like that very much." After breakfast, Noah saddled his horse. "Can you ride?" he asked. Olivia nodded. "I learned as a girl, though it's been some time." "It'll come back to you," Noah assured her, helping her mount before swinging up behind her. The closeness was intimate in a way that would have been scandalous in Boston society, but out here, practicality trumped propriety. The stream, when they reached it, was more substantial than Olivia had expected, a ribbon of clear water flowing between rocky banks, shaded by cottonwood trees. It was the most beautiful sight she'd seen since arriving in the territory. "I'll give you privacy," Noah said, dismounting and helping her down. "Just stay within earshot. There are still dangers out here." Olivia waited until he had walked a discreet distance away before eagerly approaching the water. She removed her boots and stockings first, sighing with pleasure as she dangled her feet in the cool stream. After ensuring Noah was truly out of sight, she quickly stripped off her filthy dress and undergarments and waded in. The water was gloriously refreshing against her skin. She scrubbed away days of grime, working her fingers through her tangled hair until it felt clean again. For the first time since Edward's betrayal, Olivia felt something like hope stirring within her. She was so lost in the simple pleasure of being clean that she didn't immediately notice the rustling in the bushes on the opposite bank. When she did look up, her heart froze. Not 20 feet away stood a mountain lion, its tawny coat gleaming in the dappled sunlight, its eyes fixed intently upon her. Olivia couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The great cat's muscles tensed, preparing to spring. "Don't move," Noah's voice came from behind her, low and steady. "Stay exactly where you are." From the corner of her eye, she saw him step into view, rifle raised to his shoulder. The mountain lion turned its attention to this new threat, ears flattening against its skull. The crack of the rifle shattered the silence. The big cat leaped not toward them but away, disappearing into the underbrush with a snarl of pain. "I hit it, but not clean," Noah said tersely. "Get dressed quickly. We need to leave." Olivia suddenly became aware of her nakedness. Noah had turned his back immediately after firing, giving her privacy, but the knowledge that he had seen her even briefly brought a flush to her cheeks that had nothing to do with the desert heat. She scrambled out of the water and into her clothes, not caring that the fabric clung uncomfortably to her damp skin. "Ready," she called once she was decent. Noah turned, his expression grave. "That's the cat I've been tracking. It's wounded now, which makes it more dangerous. We should get back to camp and move on." "I'm so sorry," Olivia said as they hurried to the horse. "If I hadn't, this isn't your fault," Noah cut her off, helping her mount. "That cat's been a problem for months, killed 2 children from a homestead south of here last month." As they rode back to camp, Olivia was acutely aware of Noah's arms around her, of the strength in his body as he held her secure. Despite the danger they'd just faced, or perhaps because of it, she felt a strange flutter in her chest whenever his hand accidentally brushed against her waist. They packed up camp quickly, Noah working with the efficiency of a man accustomed to moving at a moment's notice. Within an hour, they were heading west, Olivia now riding the second horse while Noah led the way. "There's a place about a day's ride from here," he explained as they traveled. "An old trading post run by a friend of mine. We can rest there, get you some proper clothes and supplies before continuing to Tucson." "You've been so kind," Olivia said, struggling to express her gratitude adequately. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you." Noah glanced back at her, a small smile softening his weathered features. "Out here, we help each other. That's how we survive." They rode in companionable silence for much of the day, stopping occasionally to rest the horses and drink from Noah's canteen. Olivia found herself studying his profile when he wasn't looking, the strong line of his jaw, the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled, the gentle way he handled his horse. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, Noah led them to a sheltered area between 2 large rock formations. "We'll camp here tonight," he said, dismounting. "It's defensible in case that cat decides to come looking for us." Olivia's stomach tightened at the reminder of the wounded predator potentially stalking them, but she tried not to show her fear. "What can I do to help?" she asked instead. Noah looked mildly surprised at the offer. "You can gather some of those smaller branches for the fire if you're feeling up to it. Stay close, though." Eager to be useful, Olivia set about collecting firewood while Noah tended to the horses and set up camp. By the time darkness fell, they had a small fire crackling cheerfully, and Noah was once again preparing a simple meal. "Have you always lived in the West?" Olivia asked as they ate. Noah shook his head. "Born in Pennsylvania. My father worked the coal mines. After he died in a cave-in, my mother remarried, and my stepfather wasn't keen on having another man's son around. I left home at 16, worked my way west." "That must have been difficult," Olivia said softly. "It was freedom," Noah replied, surprising her. "Out here, a man is judged by what he can do, not where he came from or who his family is." He glanced at her. "What about you? What brought you west besides Blackwell?" Olivia considered the question. "I suppose I was looking for freedom too in my way. After my parents died, everyone in Boston had such expectations of what I should do, marry well, maintain our social standing." She stared into the fire. "Edward seemed like an escape from all that. He talked about open skies and new beginnings. And that appealed to you." "Leaving civilization behind, parts of it did," she admitted. "The idea of a place where I could define myself instead of being defined by others." She gave a rueful laugh, though I imagined it would involve fewer near-death experiences. Noah's smile reached his eyes, transforming his face. "The West has a way of testing what you're made of. Some people break. Others find strength they never knew they had." "Which was it for you?" Olivia asked. "Both at different times," he answered honestly. "But that's the beauty of it. You can rebuild yourself out here, as many times as you need to." As they talked into the evening, Olivia found herself sharing things she had never told anyone: her dreams of writing, her secret passion for astronomy, her frustration with the limitations placed on women in Eastern society. Noah listened attentively, offering neither judgment nor platitudes, simply accepting her words as part of who she was. In turn, he told her about his years working cattle drives, his time scouting for the army during conflicts with native tribes, and his current work hunting predators that threatened settlers. His life had been hard but full of a kind of freedom Olivia had only dreamed about. "We should get some sleep," Noah eventually said, banking the fire. "We've got a long ride tomorrow." Unlike the previous night, they had no tent. Noah had left it behind to travel faster. He laid out bedrolls on opposite sides of the fire, then hesitated. "I'll keep watch for a while," he decided. "That mountain lion might still be tracking us." "You need rest too," Olivia protested. "I'll wake you for the second watch," Noah promised, though they both knew he wouldn't. Olivia settled onto her bedroll, watching as Noah positioned himself against a rock, rifle across his knees. The night was cool, the desert air crisp and clean. Above them, stars blazed in a tapestry more brilliant than any Olivia had ever seen back east. "They're beautiful, aren't they?" Noah said, noticing her gaze. "Like diamonds scattered across black velvet." "I used to study them in Boston," Olivia told him. "My father had a telescope. We would identify constellations together." Noah pointed upward. "That's Cygnus the swan, and over there is Aquila the eagle." Surprised, Olivia propped herself up on her elbow. "You know the constellations?" "My mother taught me," Noah said softly, "before she remarried. She said knowing the stars meant you could never truly be lost." Something warm unfurled in Olivia's chest at this unexpected shared interest. "Show me more," she requested. For the next hour, they talked of stars and myths, Noah pointing out constellations while Olivia added details from the Greek and Roman legends she had studied. It was the most natural conversation she had ever had with a man. No pretense, no social maneuvering, just two people connecting over a shared fascination with the night sky. Eventually, Olivia's eyes grew heavy. The last thing she remembered before drifting off was Noah's voice, low and gentle, telling her about the North Star and how it had guided him home more than once. She awoke to the scent of coffee and the soft sounds of morning. Noah was already up, as she had expected, looking none the worse for his night of vigilance. "Sleep well?" he asked, offering her a cup. "Better than I have in months," Olivia admitted. "Thank you for the astronomy lesson." Something like pleasure flickered across Noah's face. It was nice having someone to share it with. They broke camp efficiently and continued their journey as the sun climbed higher in the sky. Olivia found herself more comfortable on horseback now, her body remembering the rhythm of riding. The landscape changed gradually around them, the stark desert giving way to scattered vegetation and eventually more substantial trees as they followed a dry riverbed. "We're getting close to Willow Creek," Noah told her around midday. "The trading post is just beyond those hills." "Will your friend be expecting us?" Olivia asked, suddenly self-conscious about her appearance and the imposition of their arrival. Noah chuckled. "Frank Mitchell doesn't expect anything, which is why nothing surprises him. He's seen it all out here." As they crested the hill, Olivia saw a collection of buildings nestled in a small valley below. The trading post was larger than she had imagined, a main building constructed of rough-hewn logs, several outbuildings, corrals for livestock, and what appeared to be a small orchard. It was an oasis of civilization in the wilderness. They rode down into the valley, and as they approached the main building, a burly man with a silver-streaked beard emerged onto the porch. He shaded his eyes against the sun, then broke into a wide grin. "Noah Reed, as I live and breathe," he called. "Thought you'd be halfway to Mexico by now, chasing that cat." "Had a change of plans, Frank," Noah replied, dismounting and helping Olivia down from her horse. "This is Miss Olivia Montgomery. She could use some assistance." Frank's shrewd eyes took in Olivia's bedraggled appearance, but his smile remained welcoming. "Any friend of Noah's is welcome here, miss. Come inside where it's cooler." The interior of the trading post was a marvel to Olivia. Shelves lined the walls, stocked with everything from canned goods to tools, fabrics to ammunition. A pot-bellied stove provided warmth, and a long counter separated the store area from what appeared to be living quarters in the back. "Sarah," Frank called. "We've got visitors." A plump, pleasant-faced woman emerged from the back room, wiping her hands on her apron. Her eyebrows rose at the sight of Olivia, but like her husband, she showed no judgment. "Land sakes, child, you look like you've been through the wars," she said, hurrying forward. "Come with me. We'll get you sorted out." Before Olivia could protest, Sarah Mitchell had whisked her away to a back room, leaving Noah to explain the situation to Frank. The woman's kindness was overwhelming after everything Olivia had endured, and to her embarrassment, she found tears welling in her eyes. There, Sarah soothed, patting her hand. "Whatever's happened, you're safe now. Noah reads the best man in 3 territories, and you're under our roof. Let's get you a bath and some clean clothes." The next hour was a blur of luxury for Olivia. Sarah heated water for a proper bath in a tin tub, provided soap that smelled of lavender, and laid out clean clothing that, while simple, was blessedly intact. After Olivia had bathed and dressed, Sarah insisted on brushing and braiding her hair. "Such beautiful hair," the older woman commented as she worked. "Like burnished copper in the sunlight. Thank you," Olivia said softly, "for all of this. I don't know how I'll repay your kindness." Sarah waved away her concerns. "Friends of Noah's don't need to worry about payment. That man has saved Frank's life twice over. Whatever he needs, we provide." Curiosity got the better of Olivia. "How long have you known Noah?" "Going on 10 years now," Sarah replied. "He was just a boy when he first came through, all bones and determination. Helped Frank fight off some rustlers who thought our little place would be easy pickings." She secured Olivia's braid with a ribbon. "He doesn't let many people close, our Noah. Too many losses, I expect." Something in Sarah's tone made Olivia wonder what losses the woman was referring to. But before she could ask, Sarah was ushering her back to the main room where Noah and Frank sat at a small table, deep in conversation. Both men looked up as they entered. Noah's expression changed subtly as he took in Olivia's transformation, her clean, borrowed dress, her neatly braided hair, her face scrubbed free of dust and despair. Something flickered in his eyes that sent a curious warmth through her veins. "Miss Montgomery," he said, standing, "you look restored." "Thanks to Mrs. Mitchell's kindness," Olivia replied, smiling at the older woman. "Sarah," the woman corrected. "We don't stand on ceremony here." Frank gestured to the table. "Come have some food, Miss Montgomery. Noah's been telling me about your ordeal. That Blackwell character is a real piece of work." Over a hearty meal of venison stew and fresh bread, they discussed what had happened and what should be done next. Frank confirmed what Noah had said about Edward Blackwell's reputation. "Been hearing stories about him for months," the trader said grimly. "Smooth-talking devil who preys on vulnerable women. Marshall in Tucson would surely like to know he's graduated to attempted murder." "We'll head there tomorrow," Noah said. "Olivia can give her statement, and they can put out alerts to other territories." "You'll stay the night here, of course," Sarah insisted. "I've already made up the spare room for Miss Montgomery, and Noah, you know your usual spot in the loft is always ready." After the meal, Frank took Noah to examine the horses and discuss supplies they would need for the journey to Tucson. Left alone with Sarah, Olivia helped clean up, grateful for the normalcy of the domestic task. "Noah says you're from Boston," Sarah commented as they worked. "What did you do there before?" "I was a teacher briefly," Olivia admitted. "At a girls' school, I taught literature and astronomy." Sarah looked impressed. "Educated, then. We need more of that out here. Most children lucky enough to get schooling just learn their letters and figures before being put to work." "Do you have children?" Olivia asked. A shadow crossed Sarah's face. "We did. Our son, Thomas. He died of fever 5 years ago. He would have been 20 this year." "I'm so sorry," Olivia said softly. Sarah nodded, accepting the sympathy. "It nearly broke us, but out here you either bend or you break. We chose to bend." She glanced toward the door where the men had exited. "Noah was a godsend during that time. Stayed with us for months, kept the place running while we grieved." The picture of Noah that was emerging touched Olivia deeply. This quiet, capable man who had saved her life was, it seemed, in the habit of rescuing others in various ways. Later that evening, as the four of them sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the desert in shades of gold and crimson, Olivia felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced since before her parents' deaths. The Mitchells were kind, unpretentious people who asked nothing of her except her company. And Noah. She found her gaze drawn to him repeatedly as he sat whittling a small piece of wood, his hands moving with practiced skill. What was it about this man that fascinated her so? He was nothing like the polished gentleman she had known in Boston. His clothes were functional rather than fashionable, his manner direct instead of diplomatic. Yet there was a quiet dignity in him, an integrity that outshone all the social graces she had been taught to value. As if sensing her scrutiny, Noah looked up, catching her gaze. For a moment they simply looked at each other, something unspoken passing between them. Then Sarah asked a question about the journey ahead, breaking the moment. That night, lying in a real bed for the first time in weeks, Olivia found herself unable to sleep despite her comfortable surroundings. Her mind was too full of the dangers she had survived, the betrayal she had endured, and most persistently, thoughts of Noah Reed. Was it merely gratitude she felt toward him? The natural attachment of the rescued to their rescuer? Or was it something more, something that had taken root during their conversations beneath the stars, something nurtured by his quiet strength and unexpected gentleness? She rose from bed and moved to the small window, looking out at the star-filled sky. Somewhere out there, Edward Blackwell continued his predatory existence, perhaps already seeking his next victim. The thought filled her with a cold determination. He needed to be stopped, and her testimony in Tucson might help make that happen. But what then? She had no home to return to, no family waiting, no funds to establish herself anywhere. The future yawned before her, both terrifying and strangely exhilarating in its blankness. A movement in the yard below caught her attention. Noah stood near the corral, also gazing up at the stars. Even from a distance, Olivia could see the straight line of his shoulders, the watchful alertness that never seemed to leave him. As if drawn by her thoughts, he turned and looked toward her window. Olivia stepped back instinctively, though she knew the darkness would hide her from view. After a moment, Noah returned to his contemplation of the heavens, unaware of the turmoil his presence created in her heart. The journey to Tucson began early the next morning. Sarah had packed them provisions for the road and insisted Olivia keep the clothes she had loaned her, along with a sturdy pair of boots better suited to Western travel than her city footwear had been. "You come back and see us," the older woman said as they prepared to depart. "Whatever happens in Tucson." Frank shook Noah's hand firmly. "Be careful. Word is Blackwell's made some unsavory connections. He's not working alone anymore." Noah nodded grimly. All the more reason to get Olivia's testimony to the marshal. They rode out as the sun cleared the eastern horizon, Olivia now much more comfortable on horseback after several days of practice. The Mitchells had provided her with a proper saddle instead of riding bareback or behind Noah, and the independence of controlling her own mount gave her a sense of capability she relished. "Frank and Sarah are wonderful people," she commented as they left the trading post behind. "The best," Noah agreed. "They've saved my hide more than once over the years." "Sarah told me about their son," Olivia said quietly, "how you helped them after he died." Noah was silent for a long moment. Thomas was a good kid, smart, wanted to be a doctor, his dying like that it wasn't right. There was a depth of feeling in his voice that suggested this was more than just sympathy for friends. "You were close to him?" Olivia asked. "He was like the brother I never had," Noah admitted. "I taught him to track, to hunt. He taught me about books he was always reading, that boy." His jaw tightened. "After he died, I stayed on to help with the heavy work. Frank wasn't himself for a long time. Sarah said you were a godsend." Noah looked uncomfortable with the praise. "I just did what needed doing, same as they would have done for me." He changed the subject. "The trail gets rougher from here. We'll need to keep our wits about us." The next 2 days of travel were indeed more challenging. They followed trails that sometimes seemed to exist only in Noah's memory, crossed shallow streams, and picked their way through rocky terrain that tested both riders and horses. Through it all, Noah was a patient guide, teaching Olivia how to read the landscape, how to spot signs of water, how to identify edible plants along the way. On the evening of the second day, as they made camp in a small canyon, Olivia realized how much she had changed in the short time since Noah had found her dying in the desert. Her skin had darkened from the sun, her hands had grown calloused from handling reins and helping with camp chores, and her mind had expanded to encompass new skills and knowledge. "You're different," Noah observed as they sat by the fire after their evening meal. "From when I first found you." Olivia looked up, surprised by his perception. "Am I?" Noah nodded. "You move differently, more, connected to the land, less like you're fighting it." "I suppose I am different," she acknowledged. "Nearly dying changes a person, so does being betrayed by someone you trusted." She poked at the fire with a stick. "But it's more than that. I feel like I'm becoming who I was always meant to be, underneath all the layers of Boston propriety." "And who is that?" Noah asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. Olivia considered the question. "Someone stronger. Someone who makes her own choices instead of following a path laid out by others." She looked directly at him. "Someone who sees the world as it is, not as she wishes it to be." "That's a valuable lesson," Noah said quietly. "Most people never learn it." "What about you?" Olivia asked. "What lessons has the West taught you?" Noah stared into the flames. "That most things people value don't matter out here. Money, social standing, fancy talk, none of it means anything when you're facing a blizzard or drought." He looked up, meeting her eyes. "That a person's word is the only currency that truly matters, and that sometimes the greatest strength is knowing when to ask for help." "Is that difficult for you?" "Asking for help." A faint smile touched his lips. "Used to be impossible. Nearly died of stubbornness my first year out here." The smile faded. "Learned better after watching good men die for want of admitting they needed assistance." They fell silent, each lost in thought as the fire crackled between them. Olivia was acutely aware of how intimate these conversations felt, more intimate in many ways than any interaction she had ever had with Edward, despite their supposed engagement. With Noah, there was no pretense, no performance, just the honest exchange of thoughts and experiences. "We should reach Tucson by midday tomorrow," Noah said eventually. "The marshal there, James Sullivan, is a fair man. He'll listen to your story." And then, Olivia couldn't keep the uncertainty from her voice. Noah studied her face. "That depends on what you want, Olivia. Tucson's growing fast. A educated woman like you could find work there teaching, perhaps, or in one of the new businesses." "Is that what you think I should do?" "It's not for me to say," Noah replied carefully. "But you have options, more than you might think." The unspoken question hung between them. Would Noah Reed be part of those options? Olivia wanted to ask but couldn't find the courage. This man had saved her life, shown her kindness and respect, but his life was not one of settlement and stability. He was a man of the open country, of long trails and solitary purpose. "What will you do?" she asked instead. "After we reach Tucson?" There's that mountain lion still to deal with, Noah said, his tone neutral. And Frank mentioned some trouble with rustlers near the border that the ranchers have asked for help with. Always moving on, Olivia thought with a pang of something that felt surprisingly like loss. Always needed elsewhere. We should get some sleep, Noah said, rising to bank the fire. Tomorrow will be a long day. As had become their custom, they laid out their bedrolls on opposite sides of the fire. But sleep eluded Olivia as she gazed up at the familiar constellations Noah had named for her. Tomorrow they would reach Tucson, and this strange, intense chapter of her life would close. The thought filled her with a curious mixture of anticipation and dread. Tucson appeared on the horizon shortly after noon the next day, a sprawling collection of adobe buildings, wooden structures, and tent establishments that comprised the growing territorial capital. After the isolation of the desert and the quiet of the trading post, the town seemed bustling and chaotic to Olivia's eyes. "It's larger than I expected," she commented as they rode down the main street, passing saloons, hotels, mercantiles, and what appeared to be a newly constructed church. "Fastest growing town in the territory," Noah replied. "The railroad's coming through soon. That'll change everything." They dismounted in front of a solid brick building with Marshall painted above the door. Noah tied the horses to the hitching post and offered Olivia his arm as they climbed the steps. Inside, a grizzled man in his 50s looked up from paperwork spread across a scarred desk. His weathered face broke into a smile when he recognized Noah. "Reed. Didn't expect to see you back in town so soon." His gaze shifted to Olivia, curiosity evident in his expression. "Marshall Sullivan," Noah acknowledged with a nod. "This is Miss Olivia Montgomery. She has information about Edward Blackwell you'll want to hear." The marshal's expression sharpened. "Blackwell, the con man who's been working the territory." "The same," Noah confirmed. "Only he's escalated from swindling to attempted murder." For the next hour, Olivia recounted her story meeting Edward in Boston, his courtship and proposal, their journey west, and his ultimate betrayal in the desert. The marshal took notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions but never doubting her account. "You're lucky to be alive, Miss Montgomery," Sullivan said when she had finished. "And Reed, you found her just in time, sounds like." "She'd been fighting to survive for days before I came across her," Noah said, a note of admiration in his voice that warmed Olivia despite the grim subject matter. "Well, this changes things," the marshal said, standing and moving to a board covered with wanted notices. He pulled one down and handed it to Noah. "Blackwell was already wanted for fraud and theft, but attempted murder raises the stakes considerably. I'll send telegrams to every lawman in the territory today." "What are the chances of finding him?" Olivia asked. Sullivan sighed. "Hard to say. The territory's vast and men like Blackwell know how to disappear. But this," he tapped her written statement, "gives us something solid to work with. And if he's still using the same name, that helps." "Do you have any idea where he might have gone?" Noah asked. "Last reports had him heading toward Bisbee," Sullivan replied. "There's a silver boom there, lots of new money floating around, perfect hunting ground for someone like him." Olivia felt a chill at the thought of Edward continuing his predatory schemes unchecked. "He mentioned partners," she recalled suddenly. "Men who would help him manage his investments," he said. The marshal's eyebrows rose. "That's new information. Any names?" Olivia concentrated, trying to recall details from conversations that now seemed to have occurred in another lifetime. "Hammond, I think, and someone called the doctor, though I don't believe he was an actual physician." Sullivan wrote down the names. "This helps, Miss Montgomery." "Now, what about you? Do you have somewhere to stay in town?" The practical question brought Olivia back to her immediate concerns. "No, I haven't thought that far ahead." "Miss Montgomery lost everything when Blackwell abandoned her," Noah explained. We came straight here from Frank Mitchell's trading post. I see. The marshal studied Olivia thoughtfully. Well, my wife runs a boarding house for respectable women on Cedar Street. I'm sure she can find room for you while you get your bearings. That's very kind, Olivia said, relief washing over her. I don't have much money, but I can work. Let's not worry about that just yet, Sullivan said kindly. Martha always needs help with the younger boarders. She was a teacher back east before we came west, and she started a small school for girls. Someone with your education would be an asset. Noah had remained silent during this exchange, his expression unreadable. Now he spoke up. I can take Olivia to meet your wife before I head out if that works, the marshal nodded. That would be appreciated. I need to get these telegrams sent. He turned to Olivia. Miss Montgomery, thank you for your courage in coming forward. We'll do everything possible to bring Blackwell to justice. Outside, the afternoon sun beat down on Tucson's dusty streets. Noah untied the horses but made no move to mount. Marshal Sullivan's wife is a good woman, he said, not quite meeting Olivia's eyes. You'll be safe there while you decide what you want to do next. You're leaving then? Olivia asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Right away. Noah finally looked at her directly. That mountain lion is still out there, and Frank's message about the rustlers sounded urgent. Of course, Olivia said, fighting a wave of disappointment that surprised her with its intensity. You have responsibilities. They walked in silence through Tucson's streets, leading the horses rather than riding. Olivia tried to take in her surroundings, this place that might become her home, at least temporarily, but found her attention repeatedly drawn to the man beside her, memorizing the way he moved, the profile of his face, the strength in his hands as they held the reins. The boarding house was a large, well-maintained adobe structure with flowering vines climbing its walls and a shaded porch where several women sat doing needlework. They looked up with interest as Noah and Olivia approached. Martha Sullivan proved to be a handsome woman in her 40s with intelligent eyes and a no-nonsense manner that reminded Olivia of her former headmistress in Boston. After hearing a brief explanation of the situation, she welcomed Olivia warmly. We have a small room available that will suit you perfectly, she said. And James is right, I could use help with the school. Several of our girls are preparing for teaching certificates, and your experience would be invaluable. Everything was happening so quickly. One moment, Olivia had been wondering what her future might hold, and the next, a path was opening before her, a respectable position, decent lodgings, the chance to use her education in a meaningful way. It was more than she could have hoped for. And yet, as she turned to thank Noah, she felt an inexplicable sadness. It seems I've landed on my feet, she said, trying to smile. You would have regardless, Noah replied quietly. You're stronger than you know, Olivia Montgomery. Martha tactfully excused herself to prepare Olivia's room, leaving them alone on the porch. I don't know how to thank you, Olivia began, for saving my life, for bringing me here, for everything. No thanks needed, Noah said, his voice gruff. Anyone would have done the same. No, Olivia contradicted him gently. Not anyone. What you did, what you've been to me these past days, it's not something I'll ever forget. Noah looked away, clearly uncomfortable with her gratitude. You should get settled. Martha will take good care of you. He was leaving. Olivia could see it in the way he shifted his weight, in his reluctance to meet her eyes. A near stranger a week ago, now someone whose absence would leave a hole in her world. Will you? She hesitated, then pushed forward. Will you come back? To Tucson, I mean, sometime. Now Noah did look at her, and something in his eyes made her breath catch. I pass through every few months, he said. I could check on you, make sure you're doing all right. It wasn't what she wanted to hear, but it was something. I'd like that. An awkward silence fell between them, filled with things unsaid. Finally, Noah extended his hand formally, as if they were business acquaintances concluding a transaction. Good luck, Olivia. I hope you find what you're looking for here. Olivia took his hand, but instead of shaking it, she impulsively leaned forward and kissed his cheek. Thank you, Noah Reid, for my life. She turned quickly and entered the boarding house before he could see the tears threatening to spill from her eyes, not trusting herself to look back. The weeks that followed were a blur of activity as Olivia settled into life at Martha Sullivan's boarding house. The other women, mostly teachers, shop clerks, and widows, welcomed her into their circle, and she found genuine satisfaction in helping with the small school Martha ran for girls from the surrounding area. Yet despite the kindness shown to her and the purpose she found in teaching, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that something essential was missing. At night, she would often sit on the boarding house porch, gazing up at the stars and remembering the quiet conversations she had shared with Noah beneath the same constellations. Regular updates from Marshal Sullivan kept her informed about the search for Edward Blackwell. The man had been spotted in Bisbee, then Tombstone, always staying one step ahead of the law. The knowledge that he remained free troubled Olivia, but as weeks stretched into months, the immediacy of her fear faded, replaced by a cautious optimism about her new life. Martha proved to be not only a generous hostess but a mentor and friend. With her encouragement, Olivia began writing for the local newspaper short pieces about education and Eastern culture that were well received by Tucson's growing population of educated settlers. You have a gift with words, Martha told her one evening as they sat reviewing student essays. Have you considered writing something more substantial? A book, perhaps? Olivia laughed softly. What would I write about? Your experiences, Martha suggested. The contrast between East and West. The journey of a proper Boston lady into the heart of the frontier. People back East are fascinated by such accounts. The idea took root in Olivia's mind. That night, she began writing not for publication, but for herself. The act of putting her experiences to paper was cathartic, allowing her to process everything that had happened since leaving Boston. As summer gave way to fall, Olivia established a comfortable routine. Mornings were spent teaching at Martha's school, afternoons writing or helping at the boarding house, evenings in the company of the other women or alone with her thoughts and her journal. She received occasional letters from Sarah Mitchell, keeping her informed about happenings at the trading post and always including a line or two about Noah, where he had been seen, what he was doing, that he had asked about her when passing through. These scraps of information sustained her more than she cared to admit, even to herself. Why should it matter what a near stranger was doing? Yet Noah Reid was hardly a stranger anymore. He was the man who had saved her life, who had shared his water, food, and knowledge when she had nothing. The man who had shown her kindness without expectation, who had looked at her with respect rather than pity. One crisp November morning, Olivia was at the schoolhouse early, preparing materials for the day's lessons, when she heard the door open behind her. "You're early, Martha," she said without turning. "I've just put coffee on to brew." "Not Martha," a familiar deep voice replied. Olivia whirled around, her heart suddenly racing. Noah Reid stood in the doorway, hat in hand, looking much as he had the day they parted except for a new scar that ran along his jawline. "Noah," she exclaimed, unable to keep the joy from her voice. "You're back in Tucson." "Just rode in last night," he confirmed, remaining by the door as if uncertain of his welcome. "Marshal Sullivan said I'd find you here." Olivia wanted to run to him, to throw her arms around him in greeting, but something in his reserved posture kept her in place. "It's wonderful to see you," she said instead. "How have you been?" "Well enough," Noah replied, his eyes taking in her appearance, the neat teaching dress, her hair styled in a practical but becoming fashion, the confidence in her posture that hadn't been there when they last met. "You look settled." "I am, I suppose," Olivia acknowledged, Martha has been incredibly generous and the teaching gives me purpose. She gestured to the coffee pot on the small stove in the corner. Would you like some? We have time before the students arrive. Noah finally stepped fully into the schoolroom, closing the door behind him. That would be welcome. Been on the trail since dawn yesterday. As Olivia poured coffee into 2 chipped mugs, she was acutely aware of Noah's presence, the scent of leather and horse and open air that clung to him, the careful way he moved in the confined space of the schoolroom, as if afraid of disturbing its order. Sullivan tells me you've been writing for the newspaper, Noah said as he accepted the coffee. Olivia nodded, pleased that he knew. Small pieces, mostly. Educational matters, some observations about territorial life from an Easterner's perspective. I read one, Noah admitted, surprising her. About the stars, how they look different here than back east, but they're the same stars, just seen clearly for the first time. Warmth flooded Olivia's cheeks. You read that, picked up the paper in Bisbee last month, Noah said, a hint of embarrassment in his voice. Recognized your name on the byline. The thought of Noah reading her words, perhaps thinking of their nights by the campfire, sent a flutter through Olivia's chest. And what did you think? Thought it was true, Noah said simply. What you wrote about seeing things as they really are out here, not just how we want them to be. Their eyes met over the rims of their coffee cups, and for a moment, the months of separation seemed to vanish. Then Noah looked away, placing his mug carefully on a nearby desk. I actually came to bring you news, he said, his tone shifting to something more businesslike. Edward Blackwell has been captured. Olivia caught her breath. When? Where? 3 days ago in a mining camp near the border, Noah replied. He was running a scheme to sell fake silver claims to new arrivals. Got careless, tried to swindle a man who turned out to be a former Texas Ranger. A complex mixture of emotions washed over Olivia: relief, vindication, and a strange sense of closure. Is he? Will there be a trial? Noah nodded. He's being brought to Tucson now. Sullivan wanted you to know ahead of time in case seeing him might be difficult for you. I want to see him, Olivia said with sudden certainty. I need to. Noah studied her face. Are you sure? You don't owe him anything, Olivia, not even your attention. It's not for him, she explained. It's for me. To close that chapter completely, understanding dawned in Noah's eyes. I'll be there with you if you want when they bring him in. The offer meant more to Olivia than she could express. Thank you, I would appreciate that. They fell silent, each sipping their coffee, the familiar comfort of each other's presence wrapping around them despite the months apart. Olivia had so many questions about where Noah had been, what he had done, whether he had thought of her as often as she had thought of him. But before she could voice any of them, the schoolroom door opened, and Martha Sullivan entered, followed by 2 young students. Martha stopped short at the sight of Noah, surprise quickly giving way to pleased understanding. Mr. Reed, what a delightful surprise. I see you found our star teacher. Noah straightened, setting down his coffee. Mrs. Sullivan, just bringing some news from the marshal. Martha's expression sobered. About Blackwell. Yes, madam. They're bringing him in tomorrow or the next day. Martha glanced at Olivia with concern. Will you be all right, my dear? I'll be fine, Olivia assured her, drawing strength from Noah's steady presence beside her. Mr. Reed has offered to accompany me when they bring him in. Good, Martha said firmly. You shouldn't face that alone. She turned to the curious students who were watching the exchange with undisguised interest. Girls, this is Mr. Reed. He's a friend of Miss Montgomery's from her journey to Tucson. The girls curtsied politely, eyeing Noah with the fascination children often reserve for new and unusual adults in their world. I should let you get to your teaching, Noah said, retrieving his hat from where he had placed it on a desk. I'll check in with Sullivan about when exactly they're bringing Blackwell in. Will you come to dinner at the boarding house tonight? Martha asked. I'm sure Olivia would love to catch up properly, and my James always enjoys your company. Noah hesitated, glancing at Olivia as if seeking her input. Please do, she said softly. It would be lovely to talk more. Something in Noah's expression relaxed. I'd be honored, Mrs. Sullivan, thank you. After he had gone, Olivia found it nearly impossible to concentrate on the day's lessons. Her mind kept returning to Noah, the new scar on his jaw, the way his eyes had lit up when she mentioned her writing, the quiet strength of his presence that somehow made the schoolroom feel both smaller and safer at once. Martha noticed her distraction, but said nothing until the students had been dismissed for the day. As they tidied the schoolroom together, she finally broached the subject. He came all this way to tell you about Blackwell personally, she observed. He could have just sent word with a passing traveler or waited for the marshal to inform you. Olivia focused on arranging books on a shelf, avoiding Martha's knowing gaze. I'm sure he had other business in Tucson. Perhaps, Martha allowed, a smile in her voice. Though James mentioned yesterday that he was surprised to hear Reed was coming to town, since he'd just been through less than a month ago. Olivia's hand stilled on the books. He was here last month, briefly, according to James. Delivered some troublemakers to the jail and rode out again the same day. Martha paused in her sweeping. He didn't come to see you then. Why would he? Olivia asked, trying to sound casual despite the disappointment that pierced her at the thought of Noah being in Tucson without seeking her out. Martha leaned on her broom, regarding Olivia with the same directness she used when addressing a student who was being deliberately obtuse. Because, my dear, that man has feelings for you that go well beyond the duty of a rescuer to the rescued. Olivia felt heat rise to her cheeks. You can't possibly know that. I've been married to a lawman for 20 years, Martha replied calmly. I've seen all manner of men come through our lives. The way Noah Reed looks at you isn't how a man looks at someone he merely helped once upon a time. Hope fluttered in Olivia's chest, quickly tamped down by practicality. Even if that were true, Noah isn't the settling type. His life is on the trail, moving from one job to the next, and I'm building something here, Martha's expression softened. People change, Olivia. Sometimes they just need a reason to. The boarding house dining room was abuzz with conversation that evening, the usual quiet dinner transformed by Noah's presence. The other women boarders had clearly been intrigued by Martha's mention of a special guest, and they did little to hide their interest in the handsome, if somewhat reserved, visitor. Noah, for his part, bore the attention with quiet dignity, answering questions about his travels and work with polite brevity. He had cleaned up for dinner, his usually dusty clothes brushed, his dark hair still damp from washing. The effect was striking the rugged frontiersman momentarily transformed into someone who might not look entirely out of place in a Boston drawing room. Olivia found herself watching him throughout the meal, noting how he carefully observed the social niceties despite his obvious discomfort with being the center of attention. When Martha finally suggested that perhaps Olivia might like to show Mr. Reed the garden before darkness fell completely, the relief on Noah's face was evident. Fresh air would be welcome, he agreed, rising from the table. Thank you for the excellent meal, Mrs. Sullivan. The boarding house garden was modest but lovingly tended, with benches placed to catch the evening breeze. As they walked between rows of vegetables and flowering plants, Olivia felt a curious mixture of comfort and tension in Noah's company. Sorry about the inquisition in there, she said lightly. The ladies don't get many new faces at dinner. Noah's mouth quirked in the hint of a smile. No harm done, though I think Mrs. Abernathy was disappointed to learn I don't play whist, Olivia laughed. She's been looking for a fourth player for months. You've been warned if you come to dinner again. They reached a bench beneath a flowering acacia tree, its yellow blossoms scenting the evening air. Noah gestured for Olivia to sit first, then joined her, maintaining a careful distance between them. "You seem happy here," he observed after a moment of silence. "Teaching suits you." "It does," Olivia agreed. "Though it's different from teaching in Boston. The girls here are so eager. They understand the value of education in a way my Eastern students never had to." "Because they know it's not guaranteed," Noah suggested. "Out here, everything is earned, nothing given." "Exactly." Olivia turned slightly to face him better. "But enough about me. What have you been doing these past months?" "Sarah Mitchell mentioned in her letters that you were tracking rustlers near the border." "Among other things," Noah confirmed. "Helped the Army with some scouting work. Guided a group of settlers to land north of here. Spent some time at Frank and Sarah's when work was slow." "And the mountain lion?" Olivia asked, remembering the predator that had interrupted her bath at the stream so many months ago. A shadow crossed Noah's face. "Found him. He'd killed again a child from a homestead near Willow Creek. Had to be put down." Olivia heard the regret in his voice. "You didn't want to kill it." "No," Noah admitted. "He was just doing what nature made him to do, but once they start seeing humans as prey." He shook his head. "Sometimes there are no good choices, only necessary ones." The philosophy struck Olivia as deeply characteristic of the man beside her, pragmatic, but not without compassion, accepting the harsh realities of frontier life without becoming hardened by them. "Sarah also mentioned you were at the trading post when that new family came through," Olivia said, changing the subject. "The ones with 5 children." Noah's expression lightened. "The Hendersons, good people, headed to California to start a citrus farm." "Those kids were a handful, full of questions about everything." He glanced at her. "Reminded me of you, actually, when you first started asking about the stars and plants and tracking signs." "I was rather persistent, wasn't I?" Olivia said with a small laugh. "You were curious," Noah corrected her. "There's a difference. Persistence without purpose is just stubbornness. Curiosity leads to understanding." The distinction was so thoughtful, so unexpected, that Olivia found herself momentarily speechless. This was what had drawn her to Noah from the beginning, not just his kindness or his capability, but the depth of thought that lay beneath his quiet exterior. "I've missed our conversations," she admitted softly. "No one here quite sees things the way you do." Noah's eyes met hers, something vulnerable flickering in their depths. "I've missed them too, more than I expected to." The confession hung between them, opening a door neither seemed quite ready to walk through. After a moment, Noah looked away, focusing on the darkening garden. "Sullivan says they're bringing Blackwell in tomorrow afternoon," he said, returning to safer ground. "I told him I'd come for you around 2 if that works with your teaching schedule." "Martha has already arranged for someone to cover my afternoon classes," Olivia replied. "She understands how important this is." Noah nodded. "Good, I'll be there." He hesitated, then added, "You should know Blackwell might try to provoke you. Men like him, they can't stand feeling powerless. He'll want to get a reaction." "I understand," Olivia said, steeling herself for the confrontation to come. "I won't give him the satisfaction." Noah's expression warmed with approval. "You've come a long way from the woman I found in the desert." "Because of you," Olivia said impulsively, placing her hand on his arm. "You didn't just save my life, Noah. You showed me how to live it differently with courage and purpose." Noah looked down at her hand on his arm, then slowly covered it with his own. His palm was rough with calluses, warm against her skin in the cooling evening air. "You had those qualities already," he said quietly. "You just needed the chance to discover them." They sat in silence for a long moment, hands touching, the connection between them almost tangible in the garden's growing shadows. Then, from the boarding house, Martha's voice called Olivia's name. "We should go back in," Olivia said reluctantly, withdrawing her hand. "Martha worries about propriety even with guests she approves of." Noah stood, offering his arm to help her rise. Wouldn't want to damage your reputation with the ladies of the boarding house." "Oh, I think it's far too late for that," Olivia said with a small laugh. "Mrs. Abernathy has already decided you're visiting with intentions, as she put it." A flash of something alarm, interest, crossed Noah's face before he schooled his expression. "Mrs. Abernathy sounds like she has an active imagination." "She does," Olivia agreed, trying to ignore the pang of disappointment at his response. "She's writing a romance novel in her spare time. Quite scandalous, apparently, though she won't let anyone read it." As they walked back toward the house, Olivia was acutely aware of Noah beside her, the solid presence that had come to represent safety and possibility in her mind. Tomorrow, they would face Edward Blackwell together, closing the darkest chapter of her Arizona experience. But what would come after that? The marshal's office was crowded the following afternoon. Word had spread quickly about Blackwell's capture, and it seemed everyone in Tucson with a grievance against the con man wanted to witness his arrival. Marshal Sullivan had been forced to establish a perimeter around the building, with deputies keeping the more vocal members of the crowd at bay. Noah met Olivia at the boarding house as promised, escorting her through the throng with a protective hand at her elbow. His presence cleared a path for them. Something about his bearing caused even the most aggressive onlookers to step aside. Inside, the marshal greeted them with a grim nod. "They're about 10 minutes out," he informed them. "I've arranged for you to speak with him privately, Miss Montgomery, if you still wish to." "I do," Olivia confirmed, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'll be with her," Noah added, his tone making it clear this was non-negotiable. Sullivan nodded his agreement. "Probably for the best." "Blackwell's been asking about you, Miss Montgomery. Seems mighty interested in how you survived." A cold feeling settled in Olivia's stomach. Even in defeat, Edward was fixated on the failure of his plan to kill her. Noah's hand moved to the small of her back, a subtle gesture of support that gave her strength. The commotion outside grew louder, and Sullivan moved to the window. "They're here," he announced. "Wait in my office. I'll bring him in once we've got him secured." The next few minutes passed in tense silence as Olivia and Noah waited in the marshal's private office. Through the window, they could see the crowd parting as a wagon approached, flanked by mounted deputies. In the back of the wagon, a man sat with his hands shackled. Edward Blackwell, looking considerably less polished than when Olivia had last seen him. "Are you sure about this?" Noah asked quietly, watching her face. Olivia took a deep breath. "Yes, I need to look him in the eye. Show him I survived, that he failed." Noah's expression was solemn. "Just remember, whatever he says, he has no power over you anymore." The door opened, and Marshal Sullivan entered, followed by two deputies escorting a shackled Edward Blackwell. The man who had once charmed Boston society with his elegant manners and fine clothes now appeared disheveled and diminished. His once immaculate suit was torn and dirty, his face thinner, his eyes darting nervously around the room until they landed on Olivia. "Well, well," he drawled, a shadow of his former charm surfacing through his bedraggled appearance. "If it isn't my dear fiancé, risen from the dead, you're looking remarkably well for a woman I left to die in the desert." Olivia felt Noah tense beside her but kept her own expression composed. "Hello, Edward. You, on the other hand, are looking exactly like what you are, a criminal headed for prison." Edward's eyes narrowed, flicking between Olivia and Noah. "I see you found yourself a new protector. How convenient." "Tell me, my dear, did you have to pretend to love him too, or was gratitude enough to warm his bed?" Noah took a half-step forward, but Olivia placed a restraining hand on his arm. "Your attempts to provoke us are pathetic, Edward, just like your attempts to kill me, kill you." Edward affected an expression of wounded innocence. "I merely left you to your own devices. Not my fault if an Eastern lady couldn't handle the rigors of Western travel." "Save it for the judge, Blackwell," Sullivan interjected. We've got sworn statements from 3 other women you swindled, plus attempted murder charges from Miss Montgomery here. You'll be lucky if they don't hang you." For the first time, a flicker of genuine fear crossed Edward's face. He rallied quickly, however, his gaze returning to Olivia. "You know, I actually thought about coming back for you," he said, his voice dropping to a more intimate tone. "After a day or two, just to see if you'd learned your lesson about questioning my business affairs. But then I decided a clean break would be best for both of us." "A clean break," Olivia repeated incredulously. "You left me without water in the desert." Edward shrugged as best he could with shackled hands. "Life is full of difficult choices, my dear. You made yours when you started asking too many questions about my investors." "Those fictional investors whose money you were stealing," Olivia said coldly. "Business is business," Edward replied, his charm now completely gone, replaced by a hard glint in his eyes. "And speaking of business, I don't suppose you've reconsidered your position on your inheritance. We could still come to an arrangement that might make these charges less severe." Noah made a disgusted sound. "You're even more pathetic than I imagined, Blackwell." Edward's attention shifted to Noah, sizing him up with the calculating gaze of a man accustomed to measuring others' weaknesses. "And you must be the hero of this little drama. Tell me, what was your price for rescuing the damsel? Or haven't you collected yet?" Before Noah could respond, Olivia stepped forward, placing herself directly in front of Edward. "You never understood the concept of helping someone without expecting something in return. That's why you'll never understand what real strength is, Edward. You're a parasite, living off the trust and goodness of others." For a moment, genuine rage contorted Edward's features. Then, with visible effort, he composed himself. Such high-minded sentiments from a woman who was ready to sell herself in marriage to a man she barely knew. "You're right," Olivia admitted, surprising him. "I was naive and foolish. I trusted too easily and questioned too little. But I've learned from my mistakes something you seem incapable of doing." She turned to the marshal. "I've seen enough. He can go to his cell now." Sullivan nodded to the deputies, who began to lead Edward away. At the door, he turned back, his handsome face twisted with malice. "Enjoy your temporary freedom, Olivia," he called. "Men like your rugged protector there never stay. They're not built for it. When he leaves you, and he will remember that I'm the one who showed you what you really are. Just another desperate woman seeking a man to define her existence." The door closed behind him, cutting off whatever else he might have said. Olivia stood perfectly still, Edward's parting words ringing in her ears despite her best efforts to dismiss them. "Don't give his words any power," Noah said quietly beside her. "He's just trying to hurt you one last time." "I know," Olivia replied, her voice steadier than she felt. And yet nothing," Noah said firmly. "Everything about that man is a lie. Don't let him plant doubts now." Marshal Sullivan returned, looking apologetic. "Sorry about that last bit. Should have had him gagged." "It's all right," Olivia assured him. "In a strange way, I needed to hear it to be reminded of how thoroughly I misjudged him." "Well, he won't be troubling anyone for a long time," Sullivan said with satisfaction. "Judge Parker's due in town next week. He doesn't look kindly on men who prey on women." Outside, the crowd had begun to disperse, though curious onlookers still lingered, hoping for a glimpse of the notorious prisoner. Noah kept his hand protectively at Olivia's elbow as they made their way through the thinning throng. "Would you like to go back to the boarding house?" he asked once they had reached a quieter street. Olivia shook her head. "Not yet. I need some air, some space to think." She glanced up at him. "Would you walk with me, just for a little while?" They strolled toward the outskirts of town, where new construction gradually gave way to the natural landscape. Neither spoke for some time, Olivia processing the confrontation with Edward, Noah respecting her need for silence. Finally, as they reached a small rise overlooking Tucson, Olivia stopped. "Thank you for being there with me. I'm not sure I could have faced him alone. You could have, Noah said with quiet certainty, but I'm glad you didn't have to. Olivia turned to face him fully. Noah, what Edward said at the end was meant to hurt you, Noah interrupted. Nothing more, perhaps, Olivia acknowledged, but it made me realize something I've been avoiding. You will leave Tucson soon, won't you? Noah's expression grew guarded. I have commitments. Frank's message about those rustlers, I understand, Olivia said quickly. Your life is on the trail. It's who you are. Noah was silent for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the town below them. When he finally spoke, his voice was uncharacteristically hesitant. For a long time, that's been true. After my father died, after my stepfather made it clear I wasn't welcome, movement became safety. Staying in one place meant getting hurt. He looked at her directly. But lately, I've been wondering if maybe there's something to be said for having a place to return to. A reason to come back. Olivia's heart quickened. What kind of reason? Noah took a step closer to her, close enough that she could see the flecks of gray in his blue eyes. Someone who understands both the stars and the earth. Someone who's faced the worst the desert can offer and survived. Someone who makes me think about tomorrow instead of just today. Noah, Olivia whispered, hardly daring to believe what she was hearing. I'm not good with words like you are, he continued, his voice rough with emotion. And I can't promise I'll ever be the kind of man who stays in one place all the time. But I can promise that wherever I go, I'll always come back if I have a reason to. Olivia reached up, touching his face gently, tracing the new scar along his jaw. Is that what you want? A reason to come back? Noah caught her hand in his, holding it against his cheek. What I want is you, Olivia Montgomery, however you'll have me. The simplicity and honesty of his declaration took her breath away. In that moment, all the doubts and fears that had plagued her about her future, about her place in this harsh new world, about the feelings she had tried to deny melted away. I've been falling in love with you since the moment you gave me your last drop of water in the desert, she admitted softly. I just didn't know if there was any hope if your life had room for someone like me. My life has been half empty until now, Noah said, drawing her closer. Like a canteen with just enough water to survive, but never enough to truly live. Olivia smiled at the metaphor, so perfectly suited to the man before her. And now I'm thinking that maybe true freedom isn't about always moving on, Noah said thoughtfully. Maybe it's about having someone worth coming home to. As the sun began to set over Tucson, painting the desert in shades of gold and crimson, Noah Reed finally did what he had wanted to do since finding a half-dead woman in the desert months before. He lowered his head and kissed Olivia Montgomery, gently at first, then with growing passion as she responded in kind. In that kiss was a promise not of perfection or ease, but of partnership, of a love born in the harshest circumstances and tested by separation and danger. A love as vast as the western sky and as enduring as the mountains that framed their horizon. The following spring found Tucson transformed by the arrival of the railroad, bringing with it an influx of new settlers, businesses, and opportunities. Among the changes was the expansion of Martha Sullivan's small school into a proper academy, with Olivia Montgomery Reed as its headmistress. The small house on the edge of town that Noah had built during the winter months, returning to the task between jobs that took him away for shorter and shorter periods, became known for two things: the telescope that often stood on its porch in the evenings, and the open door it maintained for travelers in need of rest and sustenance. Frank and Sarah Mitchell were frequent visitors, making the journey from their trading post every few months to stay with the couple they had come to consider family. On one such visit, Frank brought news that the territory governor had read Olivia's pieces in the newspaper and was interested in having her write educational materials for schools throughout Arizona. Told you that writing gift would serve you well, Sarah said as they sat around the dinner table, Noah watching his wife with undisguised pride. "It seems we've both found our callings," Olivia replied, reaching for Noah's hand. "Though I never imagined mine would be here." "Life has a way of leading us where we're meant to go," Noah observed, "even when the path seems lost in the desert." Later that night, as they stood on their porch beneath the star-filled sky, Noah's arms wrapped around Olivia from behind, she reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. "You ever regret it?" she asked softly. "Giving me your last water that day. You could have died yourself." Noah's arms tightened around her. "Not for a second. Some chances you have to take, even when they don't make logical sense. Some people are worth risking everything for." Olivia turned in his embrace to face him. "I used to dream about adventure when I was in Boston. Reading books about far-off places, imagining myself doing brave and remarkable things." She smiled up at him. "I never dreamed the greatest adventure would be finding home in the place I feared most, with a man who taught me what real courage looks like. And I never imagined that saving a dying woman in the desert would save me too," Noah replied, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "From loneliness, from running, from the fear of staying still." As they stood together beneath the vast canopy of stars, the same stars that had witnessed their first conversations, their growing connection, their eventual understanding that what existed between them was rare and precious, Olivia thought of how far they had come, individually and together. She had arrived in the Arizona territory as a naive Eastern lady seeking escape from convention, only to nearly lose her life to betrayal. Noah had roamed the West for years, finding purpose in movement and isolation, afraid to trust in permanence after childhood losses had taught him the pain of attachment. Yet here they stood, transformed by love and choice, she now a respected educator and writer with the strength and skills to thrive in the harsh frontier. He still a man of the trail, but with roots that ran deep, a home and heart to return to. "You know," Noah said thoughtfully, "I've been thinking about what you wrote in that newspaper piece about the stars. How they're the same stars we see everywhere, just clearer out here where there's nothing to dim their light." "What about it?" Olivia asked, leaning into his embrace. "I think love works the same way," he replied. "It's always possible, always there, but sometimes we need the right circumstances to see it clearly. For me, it took finding you dying in the desert, having nothing to offer but my last drop of water, to understand what really matters. And for me, it took losing everything to find what I truly needed," Olivia said softly. "Not security or social position or even adventure, but connection, purpose, a love strong enough to survive the harshest landscape." As they stood together under the brilliant desert stars, their silhouettes merged into one against the backdrop of the home they had built. Olivia Montgomery Reed knew with absolute certainty that she had found her true place in the world, not in the drawing rooms of Boston or even in the schoolroom where she now taught, but in the heart of a man who had given her his last drop of water when she was a stranger, and every drop of his love ever since. In the years that followed, their home became a landmark for travelers and settlers alike, a place where the lost could find direction, the weary could find rest, and those who had been betrayed, as Olivia once was, could find hope that even in the harshest desert, life and love could flourish against all odds. And on quiet nights, when Noah was home from his increasingly infrequent journeys, they would still sit together beneath the stars, naming constellations and sharing stories, their love a testament to the truth that sometimes survival depends not on strength alone, but on the courage to offer and accept that last precious drop of water when it matters most.